Okay, so I know a lot of you who join later can sort of just go back and forth. So let me just get started while more of you join in. So hi everyone, I'm Tisha. I currently take care of digital for Monster Energy in India. Uh, that's Monster, just in case you didn't know about the brand. And I have predominantly spent all of my 5.5 years of working in the digital fraternity. And I started my career with the Mahindra Group, where I was fortunate enough to work for 5 years. And it's been, I worked across a lot of diverse businesses, starting from the automotive business to Club Mahindra, which was sort of my last role. And I was blessed because I started my career in digital, so I never sort of made that transition, which I know a lot of people always ask me, how do I move into a career for into digital? But fortunately for me, I started with Mahindra in corporate branding. So my role was always core digital, social media, SEO, performance marketing, building apps, building sites, customer journey mapping, really the whole gamut. I've had the fortunate experience of doing all of that. So let's quickly get into the session for today, which is basically around client servicing. Now, before this session came up, I was just sitting and thinking, what is it about client servicing that I can tell you that you haven't read or you already don't know? And just last night I was reading this book by Piyush Pandey called Pandemonium, and the first chapter of that book, he speaks about his personal Google, which is basically his friends and family and how their experiences impacted his life and his career as an advertising professional. And he's, of course, one of my favorites. So that's what I thought I'll do today. I thought I'll share my personal experience of being on the brand side. I have worked with over, I think, 15 or 16 of the best agencies in India. Oh, hi, Akash. I see you there. Guys, as you come in, just keep saying hi, keep asking me questions. Let's try and keep the session super interactive. So it shouldn't feel like for 2 hours I'm just speaking into the screen. So keep asking me what you think. And so I decided that I'm just going to start by sharing what I have experienced in the last 5.5 years and how that could potentially help you in your interviews. Okay, so at the very onset, let's get into understanding the agency environment in India, because that's very important. So essentially, there are so many kinds of agencies today. You have the classic full service agency. Take a Mudra, for example. So a Mudra would have their offline teams. They would have Interbrand, which does pure branding. They have 22 Feet, which they acquired, which has been actually one of my agencies in the past, which does their social media. So that's like a full service agency. They do online, offline, B2B, all kinds of marketing. Then there are certain agencies which are digital only. So for example, an agency like Shebang, I think even Social Connect. So these guys only work on social media. They typically focus more on the creative side. Then there are agencies like Convenix. Now, Convenix also is a part of a group, but Convenix as a specific agency focuses mostly on performance marketing. So basically, you start with a full service, then you have agencies which get into a lot of specialization. So for example, influencer marketing today, there are agencies like Mad Influence, which literally do just influencer marketing, because that itself has become such a important sort of like, hi Ashutosh, of digital marketing. So these are the sort of different types of agency models, and a lot of different kinds of companies of these agencies are going to come to your campus. So what we're going to do is, the first step is for us to understand the different parts of digital marketing itself, because only based on that will you be able to customize your interview. So what I've done is I've put together a document for you, which I will add in the bio in this video at the end, but I'll sort of take you through that as we speak. So let's get into the first thing, which is the different aspects of digital marketing. Now, the first and the most important aspect of digital marketing today is performance marketing. Performance marketing is sort of like the sales side of digital. What you do in performance marketing is generate leads. So you use a whole plethora of options. You generate leads via social media, via ads on Google, via emailers, which is essentially called affiliate marketing. Now, performance marketing is really the heart of the company, because that's all about lead generation and then final sales. So the people who are in performance, they have targets surprisingly similar to what an area sales manager would have. So you have your cost per lead, cost per sale target, cost per acquisition, CPM, which is the cost for 1,000,000 impressions. So your cost for 1,000 impressions. So the targets there are very, very sharply defined. And performance marketing is extremely technical in nature, right? Because there you're really working on the back end of Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, Twitter, all of these platforms, you're understanding what campaigns are working for you. You're tweaking those campaigns. So it's an extremely technical role in that sense. And that's really the heart of digital marketing, because that's where you learn who's your customer, what ad is working best for your customer, what campaigns are getting you the best lead. And to just give you an example, in some of my previous roles, on a monthly basis, we used to run up to 150 performance marketing campaigns. So you can imagine, as being on the client side or on the brand side, that's just like that many campaigns to try and optimize on a monthly basis. And again, see, Facebook, Google, each of these are individual beasts in a sense, very honestly. So the back end of Google works completely differently from the back end of Facebook. In fact, even Facebook and Instagram have very different, they don't have different targeting options, but they do work slightly differently. There are certain targeting options available on Facebook which are not on Instagram, right? So though they're from the same family, the optimization works completely differently between both of them. So that's the first most important kind of marketing, which is performance marketing. The next that I've written here is SEO. Okay, so SEO is search engine optimization, which is essentially when you go onto Google, you type anything. The first two things that come up are ads, which is SEM, which is search engine marketing, and whatever comes below that, which comes organically, is search engine optimization. Now, what happens with search engine optimization is basically Google decides which pages or which websites should rank when a customer is searching for something. Now, if you see, and you don't need to be a marketer to know this, when you're searching for something, even if it's something super specific, you always realize in the first 2-3 Google links itself, you very quickly can find out, like you'll find the exact right answer, right? So how does Google do that? Because Google maps a lot of things at the back end. So it maps the content on the page, the bounce rate, so whether people are coming and actually scrolling, how long are they scrolling, or they immediately, going to the cross button and being like, okay, this is not relevant to me. Then there is a lot of backend optimization in terms of HTML tags, link building. So there is SEO is a huge field in of its own. And the problem with SEM is keywords today are becoming increasingly expensive. So if you want to target certain high volume keywords, like for example, I've worked in hospitality, and if you look at a keyword like holidays in Goa or holidays in Andaman, these keywords are so expensive that for you to rank on them through SEM is almost impossible, right? Because all the big guys have the big money. So as a small brand, the best chance that you have is SEM. So having a really is SEO. So having a really strong, a solid search engine optimization strategy, so that at least organically you start ranking there, even if your ads potentially don't rank. So that's the second sort of big field, which is hi Palak, hi, which is SEO. The third field is, of course, like my bread and butter and my favorite, which is social media. Now, social media includes Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Pinterest, TikTok. By the way, TikTok in India is becoming huge. So, and here's a little interview tip for you. When someone asks you your favorite campaign, you can obviously give them, hi Mukta. You can obviously give them like a normal cliche answer of like, oh, I love Zomato on Instagram, which is basically what each one of you is going to say. But why not look for a slightly different platform? So look at TikTok, look at the metrics that they've been achieving. And so, yeah, so basically that's social media. So in social media, essentially from the client side or from the brand side, you're creating content for your brand to put out on these different platforms. And that's really like the heart and soul. Hi, Mihir. That's really the heart and soul of digital marketing in a sense, because that's where all the creative stuff happens. That's where you run these fun campaigns, you pick up on topical events. So all the cool, fun side of social media, of digital marketing, is actually social media. And some of my favorite brands are Zomato, Swiggy, Amul. There's this amazing brand called Glossier, which is an American beauty brand. So all of the content that these guys are creating and posting on their different channels is basically social. Now, you obviously already know about social media. The fact that you're logging into this webinar means that you are interested in this field. Hi, Sanskriti. Means that you're interested in this field, and probably you have your own Instagram account. Also, if you are a digital marketer who says, I'm not active on social media, guys, I'm going to have some very serious trust issues with you. Because I feel like if you truly are passionate about social and you truly know how to use the power of social, you have to be on those platforms. So please never go for an interview and say, oh, I think I'll run a great Instagram campaign, but I'm not myself on Instagram. Okay, so that's like my first tip to you. Yeah. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Okay, I'm going to go back to what all I've already covered. Yeah. So in social media, essentially, the big thing that you will do is you will figure out for your brand or for your client what are their big content pillars, what is going to be their content strategy, have a content calendar for every month, and sort of keep that rolling. So that's the third big leg. The fourth one is online reputation management. ORM essentially is when someone comments or writes anything, hi Ritvik, on your post or on any channel, you reply to them, respond to them. So if they have a query, they have a question, they have a complaint, you get back to them within a defined turnaround time, and that is online reputation management. Now, if you're a customer service brand, for example, if you are in the service industry, so for example, if you're an airline, if you're a telephone operator, Airtel, Vodafone, you're a apparel brand, you'll see a lot of customers come to you with questions and then of course complaints, right? So ORM is a very sort of specialized field. In the past, I have worked with this amazing agency called Gozu on actually setting the entire online reputation management for practice for Club Mahindra, which includes how you can respond to people, how do you respond to trolls, how do you respond to haters, how do you amplify when someone says, okay, I love your brand, I love holidaying with you, how do you amplify that? And how do you maintain a positive to negative ratio? That is, how many positive comments is to negative comments that you're getting on a monthly basis. So ORM, like I said, is a very specialized field, but in particularly if it's a service industry brand, then ORM for them is extremely, extremely important. And one good case study, which is sort of my favorite case studies, I'll give you two of them. The first one is Maggie. If you remember the disaster that happened with Maggie, I think it was almost about 2 years ago when Maggie was banned because of certain ingredients in the product. And, I would really love for you to go and read up about how Maggie came back on social media. So Nestle actually has something called a command center, which is a bunch of 30, 40 people sitting in one room and constantly monitoring what are people saying about the brand, coming back with responses, coming back with like witty captions, or, just making sure to tell people that, listen, we're here for you. And that sort of practice really boomed during the crisis time. So that's one case study I definitely want you to read about ORM. The second is this really fun case study. So there is this American brand called Wendy's, which basically makes chicken nuggets. It's sort of similar, I guess, similar to KFC in a sense. So there was this guy who tweeted out to Wendy saying, guys, what will it take for me to get a lifetime of free chicken nuggets? And Wendy replied to him and said, it will take, I think, 18 million retweets. And that actually today is one of the highest retweeted tweets ever. So he did get that benchmark, and that went absolutely viral. So shows like Ellen DeGeneres and a lot of celebrity Instagrammers and people who are big following on Twitter started to say like, help him get that free lifetime Wendy thing. So the reason I'm telling you is because while ORM to a lot of people seems very drab, it's actually very interesting because you as a brand have the highest chance of going viral using ORM. And I think all of this started with the Oreo dunk in the dark. If you remember, that happened during the Super Bowl where the lights went off and Oreo came out with a little creative on Twitter saying, you can still dunk in the dark. And that's really, for me, that was the origin of online reputation management and going viral using ORM. And, I've done it in my own life, replying back to haters with something witty can actually just change the game for you and for them. So that's, and yeah, the other big thing about ORM is, moment marketing. So which is when there is something happening here and now, how do you quickly leverage that and, put out something which is relevant to your brand? So ORM is the other big field. Guys, if you have any comments, please keep sort of asking me about that. So then I can make sure that I keep this customized to what is interesting for you guys. Essentially, I'm going to try and give you as many details, as many examples, so you have like enough fodder to think about before your big interview day. Okay. The next is asset creation. So there are also a lot of agencies which specialize in making digital assets, whether that's websites or mobile apps. There, if you're in client servicing, your work again is a little more technical. You'll have to get into things like customer journey mapping, etc. Now, of course, for if you are, so for example, there is an agency called VML, which is very big into asset creation. So if you are interviewing with an agency where you know that, okay, these guys are into asset creation, read a little bit about customer journey mapping. I'm sure they will not expect you to know everything, but just to know the basics, the 101 about it really helps. I think it's very important before you sit for any client servicing interview to know what is the core bread and butter of the agency that you're interviewing with, because chances are that you are going to be working on like a similar brand or a similar sort of similar portfolio, right? So know that core bread and butter for them. Um, and the last two topics that I'm going to touch within the digital gamut are smaller but increasingly important. One is influencer marketing. So, like I said today, a lot of brands, I mean, customers trust influencers 5x more. And this 5x is, I have read all these numbers of 5x, 35x, but what are the major channels other than social media for ORM? Right. So, Mihir, essentially, when you look at online reputation management, social media will be the chunk, but then there are also like a lot of these blogs. So, for example, Quora, because I've been in hospitality, for me, a huge thing was TripAdvisor, Google reviews. So those are some other platforms, blogs, and even see anything where, when you're talking about ORM, anything where someone is writing about your brand on digital, which is on a public platform, which is sort of not in a private profile, that's ORM. So whether you're writing something at the end of a Yahoo News blog or whatever it is a part of ORM. Social, of course, will be the biggest way, because that's a way for the brand to directly reach out to you. Mouthchat is another one which is very popular. For auto, there are so many different auto portals which are huge in the auto industry, where they have these conversation chains going on. So you'll always see, if you check out any conversation chain in any auto car or any of those cars and bikes, you'll always see that there is some brand representative who's replying. So these are the other big channels. Yeah. So coming back to where I was, so like I spoke about influencer marketing, if customers are much more likely to believe influencers, which is why today brands are more and more leveraging influencers, their community, and sort of collaborating with them to create content. So that's a completely new specialized kind of field again. But that's mostly around content creation, finding the right influencer, making sure that the influencer you're selecting is not a sham, making sure that they actually have real followers. Because if you have been on Instagram, you know how easy it is to buy followers, to buy likes, to even buy comments today. So as someone in client servicing or on brand management, in influencer marketing, your biggest job is to make sure that the influencer you're selecting is absolutely legit. The followers they have are real. The engagement that they have is real. And I'm going to give you a quick hack here. You may not do this in your interview, but just in your life, there is this really great asset called Pulpkey. So if you just go to Pulpkey, you can type in the influencer's handle, two assets, Pulpkey and Social Blade. And these two give you a really bang on engagement rate and authenticity rate. So these are two assets. I'm also going to put them in the PDF that I finally share with you guys. But it's just good to know about these tools that are going around in the industry. Hi, Charvi. Hi, Agni. Thank you guys for logging in. Okay, and the last field is marketing automation. Now, marketing automation is really the buzzword in marketing today. Marketing automation essentially means that you have a tool like Salesforce, or a company called Netcore has a product called SmartTech, where what the product does. So, for example, if your company uses SmartTech, all of your emails, SMS, app notifications, everything is done through that. So the level of personalization, it really becomes one-to-one marketing rather than one-to-many. You can customize the message that is going out to each of your customers, really. So the big concept behind marketing automation is the segment of one. I'm sure all of you have studied about the concept of segmentation, classification. But the big thing today is, rather than dividing people up into segments of even 100, 2,000, 2 lakhs, how it used to be, you can literally make it a segment of one and customize the communication. So that's the power of a tool like, for example, SmartTech has. And again, here, if you are in the client servicing side, working with an agency or working with, here again, your job is going to be extremely specialized. You really have to deep dive into these tools, leverage these tools, a lot of optimization. So essentially, to give you an overview of what I've spoken about in the last 10 to 15 minutes, is that in digital, there are there are different aspects, right? Digital is not just about making a creative and writing copy and putting it on social media. That's just one aspect of it. There are aspects like performance marketing, marketing automation, which are very hard metric driven aspects of digital marketing. There are aspects like customer journey mapping, which are very research based aspects. And then of course there is the sort of fun glamorous part of creating content and launching campaigns and being and trending or posting the next trending tweet or moment marketing. So digital media is really a gamut of all of that, and that's something that you need to be aware of, when you sit for interviews. Really think of the entire gamut. Now, in the next segment of this, what I'm going to try and do is deep dive into each of these aspects and what client servicing would mean for each of them. So what will happen is, supposing a company is coming to you who you know that they're very big in, like they have a lot of BFSI clients, they have banking, insurance clients. So that means they would pretty much be very big in performance marketing, which is lead generation. So how do you customize your interview to make them feel like, okay, you are interested in this, or this is something you've read about? So let's go into each of these topics and understand what does someone in client servicing really do. So before I jump into this, one important thing for you to understand in client servicing is that you basically are the interface between your team and the brand, right? So there will be a brand manager, a digital marketing manager who you will be in touch with, and you will sort of be the sole or one or two of the point of contact. And then you are going to be working with the copy team, the creative team, your creative directors, the production houses at the agency side, and then of course managing the brand managers, the leaderships, doing monthly reviews. So your role in client servicing, I cannot emphasize what a critical role it is. And the most important thing, and one thing that it takes to be a successful client service or just to be successful in marketing, is brand love, right? And that's really important, and that's important for it to come out when you're giving your interviews also, that you are genuinely passionate about marketing and branding. So I am, for example, one of those people. Never in my life have I skipped a YouTube ad. I watch all of those ads just because I love knowing what are other brands up to, what are they doing, what's what messaging is working. So that passion for branding, whether you're on the client side or on the brand side, is the number one thing that interviewers look for. And in client servicing, again, that's extremely important. That, and the other big skill is people management. See, because you're going to be managing two like giants, the agency side and the brand side, and they work completely differently, right? You know this about agencies and brands. Agencies are in fact the more fun place to work. Let's face it. They can come in a little later, they can wear what they want, they work hard, they enjoy life. Branding, when you're on the brand side, it's a lot more formal. You have your 9 to 5 clocking times. So in that sense, you have to really be a value. You are the one who's going to be balancing two completely different kinds of people. Hi, Isha. So yeah. So now let's jump into what. Hi, Vishad. Hello. Hi, guys. Okay. Now let's start with, again, let's go in the same order that we did. So if you are in the client servicing side for a performance marketing agency, so here I'm going to take specific examples of my past, so it's just easier for me to talk about it. So for example, my performance agency in the past was Convenix, and I had about two or three people in client servicing. So essentially what will happen over there is that you at the beginning of your career will be given one or two channels. So either you will be managing Facebook or Google or say Twitter. Twitter is mostly an add-on, but between Facebook and Google, you're typically given one. Unless it's an e-com player, then obviously there's Amazon, Flipkart. So you'll be managing one of those channels. Yeah. So your biggest job over there is to make sure that each of the campaigns that are being run by your client on a monthly basis are optimized. Sorry, guys. I'm going to do a subtle brand plug in here during our session, being a true marketer. Okay, so in that case, one of the things that you can do already, I'm sure a lot of you have done the Google AdWords certification. Facebook has Facebook Blueprint. Don't try and do the whole certification, but definitely do check out what do these certifications entail. They're all free. They're online. Check them out. Do some of the courses at least, so you just get aware of, okay, how does Google at the back end really work? What does the Facebook backend look like? And all of this is free. All of this is available online today. And that's the greatest part about digital is free content. So that's going to be, if you are going to be having a performance interview, expect your interview to be a little technical. So do have all the basics around you. For example, what are the different key metrics? So cost per lead, what's the difference between cost per lead and cost per acquisition, cost per sale, cost CPM, what sort of metrics do you look at on Facebook versus Google? So have some of these key things on your fingertips, so that if you are giving a performance focused interview, because it'll impress them to know that not just the front end but also how these platforms work, right? So that's for performance marketing. The next one, let's see, what's the next one? Yeah, the next one we spoke about SEO. Now, SEO is extremely technical, so I do not even recommend that you start learning how to do SEO. But what I do recommend, and I'm going to share a few resources with you, is just read up about what Google looks at for SEO. So what makes certain articles or web pages or websites consistently rank over others? That's something that you should know, because because they'll probably give you a case study, etc. And if that's related to SEO, then just having these keywords like bounce rate, content optimization, using the right tags, optimized for mobile, page load speed, just having these keywords at your fingertips is really going to make them feel like, okay, wow, this is someone who clearly already understands, or at least is in the right direction to understand digital marketing, right? So that's for SEO. Just read up about a few of these terms. The next one is social media. Now, if you are interviewing for a core social media role, essentially what your job is going to be is working with the brand to understand for each of the products that they have, what kind of content is working, what kind of content you should be working on, and then working with your copy and creative teams to build on that content, right? So more often than not, social media interviews will involve a case study. The case study would typically, what we will do is, hi Vishad. So towards the end of this session, in the last 15 minutes, we try and do one case study together where I'll, for example, use maybe Monster or a different brand and tell you how I think of a new campaign. So we'll do that towards the end of the session. That's what will basically happen to you. They'll say, oh, you are a surf, or you are like a detergent company, or you are a perfume company, or you are an insurance company and you are coming out with a new product. So what would you do to launch this product into the market? And that's like, it'll be a very open-ended case study. So what I'm going to try and help you to do at the end of this session is really structure that case study, ask the right questions. See, because you have to understand, in the interview, they've not come to you so that you really tell them how to launch a product, right? They obviously have that strategy sorted. The thing they want to understand is how you think about approaching a new case study, how you think about approaching a new brand or a new launch, right? That's what they want to understand, your thought process. So the more structured your thought process is, the more it will help you in that interview process. And honestly, the stuff that we will discuss during the case study is just stuff that is going to help you even when you are really into digital marketing, and not just as a case study now. So that's social media. Online reputation management. Honestly, for ORM, again, I will share a few resources. Just read up the basics about ORM, read up a few case studies. I already told you about Maggie. I told you about Wendy's. But there are so many great case studies on ORM. There was this recently I was reading about this brand. Someone posted a picture in a dress on Tinder, and someone sort of shamed her and said, oh, I don't think this dress is meant for you. And so she posted a snapshot of that and tagged the brand. And the brand actually went ahead to use her picture and feature it on their global website, and replied back saying, now the joke's on you. Hi, Nivedita. So, there are a lot of great ORM case studies out there based on how quickly brands listen into what is happening. One thing, sorry, that I forgot to mention, I think when we were discussing ORM, is ORM typically happens via a tool. Like there is a specific tool. The job of that tool is to listen to all of the mentions about your brand, bring that in, and then classify it into positive or negative, which is done manually and by the tool. And then you or you being in the agency will have a team you'll work with to actually respond to those mentions, right? So that's really how ORM works in specifically. It's built around a tool. The tool that I've used a lot of tools in the past. My favorite has been Connect Insights. Check them out. They have a free demo which will just help you to understand how does this work. Connect Insights is, I'm just going to type in their name here. Connect Insights. So yeah, KI is basically started by this super enterprising person called Samir, who is an Indian, who's really taken the best of what's there and customized it for the Indian market. I've also worked with a lot of global tools like Radiant 6, etc. But this tool has a free demo for about 7 days, which you can log into and check out. Okay, so that's in terms of ORM. So like I said, just have a few case studies handy for that. The next one is asset creation. Here, asset creation and the other three topics, which are asset creation, influencer marketing, marketing automation. Your interviews cannot get too technical because all of these. What are your views on ORM automation? Hi, thanks for that question. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about how ORM automation works. Essentially, these engines, so for example, KI or Radiant 6, they have a AI layer on them. So in the beginning, there is a team of people who's sitting and tagging, because the main problem with ORM automation is two things. One is Hindi and the second is sarcasm. These are the two big things because the tool cannot really catch sarcasm. So as you keep going through the mentions and keep tagging and correcting the tool keeps learning. So for example, let me just give you a small example. When I started off at KI, the main tagging that happens, which is in terms of positive or negative, that was at an about 65% accuracy. And when I left, we were at about a 96% accuracy. So 96% accuracy in terms of whether the tool picks up an actual positive or an actual negative and tags it correctly. So ORM, okay, now this is the first step of automation. The second step of automation is sending out these automated responses. Hey, thank you so much. We are currently working. We'll be in touch with you. No, I hate that. I feel like no brand should be doing that, irrespective of the mention volume. I'll tell you why. Okay, so when a person comes online to complain, they are anyway agitated. The one thing I have realized is that any sort of automated manual response can annoy them even further, right? So if you remember, there was this Indigo case study where someone posted saying that I landed at XYZ airport and thank you so much, Indigo, for sending my luggage to a completely different airport. And obviously, Indigo has automated their ORM, or at least had at that point, and the response was, oh, we are glad you enjoyed our services. And then that went viral, right? So automating your responses is a big no today, because more often than not, a customer is 8 times more likely to reach out to your brand when they're annoyed versus when they are happy. Oh yeah, sorry. So another aspect of OR. Okay, sorry. I'll come back to this. Yeah. So the like I was mentioning, a customer is 8x more likely to complain to you rather than to praise you, right? And when someone is already annoyed, imagine getting an automated response. There's nothing that annoys you further. So it's better to have a longer lead time, but come back with the right response and really make them feel like you're there for them. Otherwise, it's a big failure. Hi, Amanpreet. Hi, Believe. Okay. Yeah. So that's on ORM. Yeah. The other three topics, like I mentioned, if you are interviewing for a marketing automation role or an influencer marketing role, a lot of your questions will be generic and more around the social media. Tell us about brands, etc. So let's save a lot of time and actually delve into those questions towards the later half of this session. Okay. Yeah, the next thing that I had written in my document is, how does the role of client servicing change based on which part of the portfolio you manage for the company? So like I have sort of already taken you through that, I think in detail. If there are any more questions where you think of, okay, if I'm in client servicing for XYZ kind of company or brand, what would my role be? Please just feel free to sort of type that out and ask me, and I'll try and answer that for you. Key difference between a brand manager and client servicing partner. That's the other question I've written. Okay, this is an important one. So as a brand manager, your work will be more high level in terms of strategic. So you will have at the end of the year, before you go into the year, you do a planning. So if you're a global company, you will have a global plan. You will then have an India plan or a region plan of, for yourself. You will have a fixed budget, and you will decide at the beginning of the year that, okay, this is my budget. This is what I'm going to set about to do. And then you will work with your client servicing partner on making that plan really come to life. So in a sense, the brand manager's role is more overseeing, making sure everything's on track, making sure that the strategy that you had planned is actually implemented. Whereas the client servicing person's role is also, of course, some level of strategy, but also really operationalizing it, making sure it happens, working on copy, creative, working on content production. And one of the things that the brand manager and client servicing partner often will work on very closely on a monthly basis are the content calendar, where you sort of sit and decide, okay, for the upcoming month, these are going to be my different content. These are going to be my different content buckets. And this is the kind of content I'm going to have for each platform. So that's a very important task that you probably do at the end of each month, and have that content calendar ready. And then the other big thing will be campaign planning. So when you have a new product launch or a new campaign or a new video that you'll be going live with, so you will work for about, well, up to 2 to 3 months actually, to make sure you have the right plan, the right media plan in place, the right creatives, the right assets are developed for different platforms. So that's another thing that you work very closely on. I guess the third thing is also when you are actually creating content. So typically what happens is, now there are different models of this, but typically what happens is the social media or the digital agency writes all of the scripts, and then they hire a production house to work on all of these great ads that we see. So when you are a brand manager, you work with the production house via your agency, and then you sort of create all of these great ads together. So the roles you will work hand in hand in that sense. Just that a brand manager is more accountable for the metrics. The metrics actually will be slightly different based on what kind of agency you are. So for example, if you are just into social media, your metrics will be more around organic engagement, number of retweets, number of shares, the number of comments. If you are a performance agency, like I mentioned, it be CPS, CPL. If you are a ORM agency, you will be measured the number of positive mentions that you able to amplify. How many leads are you able to organically generate in a month just through conversations? So the metrics really will keep changing. And for the brand manager, each of these will sort of roll back into their bigger metrics for the brand in terms of brand saliency, how much awareness you're looking to increase. Yeah, so the roles are different, but you work really, really hand in hand. The only sort of one of the slightly limiting factors is that in client servicing, you're typically in one specific area of the brand. So either you're in ORM or in SEO, you'll not be doing everything. It's not possible for you to do everything until you are almost 5 or 6 years into client servicing, and then you're like managing the brand full time. But that's fine, because even when you start off your career in marketing, even on the brand side, you are typically given only 1 or 2 portfolios to handle. So as in terms of learning, the learning is pretty much almost the same. If that's a question or concern that you have, what does it take to be a client service partner? This is the other question that I had written down, which I think I wanted to discuss with you. We spoke about this in the beginning of the session. For any marketer, there is nothing greater than brand love. And as someone in client servicing, you have to understand the brand and be as passionate about the brand as the brand manager or the CMO of that company is themselves. I think the biggest win for someone in client servicing is when you come back with the pitch and the brand goes like, okay, that's bang on. Like, that's exactly what my brand stands for. And that really, the best client servicing people really live and breathe their brand. And that's something that I have realized just in my marketing career. I worked across a lot of different industries. I have worked at the corporate level. I worked with tractors. I worked with a little bit with fashion, the fashion magazine Mahindra. I worked with NGOs, I worked with Auto, I worked with Club Mahindra, and now, of course, I'm working with Monster, which is an FMCG company. I think my most successful stints have been where I have been able to identify with the brand and really feel passionate about it. And that's something that, of course, I find in my current job, where I really truly believe everything that Monster stands for, and I believe like the brand is me in that sense. And so therefore, if as as a client servicing partner, if you get an option, because often when you join, you are given an option between which brands you'd like to work on. Always remember, if it's a brand you can identify with, or it's a brand that you use or you love, you will automatically be excellent at that. You'll be great at understanding the brand. Um, yeah, the other big thing is, every brand has certain guidelines, and those are there for a reason. That's because every brand has boundaries, and they're not ready to go beyond those boundaries in that sense. So as someone in client servicing, it will be your job to understand what are those boundaries and really how far you can push them. But then at any point, make sure. So I'll give you a simple example. There was this recent trend that happened. I'm not, it was a trail mix brand which essentially said, don't have a bookmark, use this. So it was a book, and it had like that trail mix inside that book, and saying that use us as a bookmark. And then Oreo picked this up, and they actually showed this really soiled book with like an Oreo cookie and milk falling over it. Now, as someone who admires Oreo as a brand, I think that was pretty reckless. And I thought that showing, like, pouring milk over a book is just insensitive and not called for, right? So while brands are always in a hurry to be more and more topical and to be more and more engaging and like catch on to these trends, a big part of your job as a client servicing person is also to understand, okay, this trend actually goes against my brand ethos, or this trend, yeah, like this, I want to be here. Like, I want to be on a World Tourism Day, but I don't want to be on a certain other day, right? And particularly when you're working with slightly more not controversial, but like categories, like when you work with a brand like Durex, which is again one of my go-to brands in terms of great advertising. Durex is a brand that you should definitely look out to see how they have consistently pushed the boundaries on their own brand, but there is a certain decorum that they still maintain. And so if you see like a Durex ad versus like a Kama Sutra ad, you'll immediately see the difference in branding, where they're talking about the same thing, but how beautifully Durex talks about such a pertinent issue. We've got a few more people. We've got Alankit and Akash. Hi guys, thanks for joining in. Yeah, so that's the other thing, understanding your brand and understanding the boundaries. The third point is being available. Look, client servicing is, I'm sorry to say, a 24/7 job, right? You have to be there for your brand when it's needed. And hi Hardik. And it is, the working hours are pretty insane, at least in the beginning of your career. Life in advertising is insane. Okay, the hours are long, but your work is amazing. The people around you will be amazing. But one of the big things is just being available for the brand, particularly if there's a crisis, if something goes wrong, then you just have to be there. And particularly, in my last, in one of the big parts of my job was online reputation management, and I worked with this agency called Gozu. And we literally had 6-member team because of the volume of mentions that we had at Club Mahindra being so high. But just like my client servicing partner there, and each of the individual people there, they had like 12, they would work like 12, 13, 14 hours, and I would work. So yeah, be prepared for not sleeping for the rest of your life as a marketer. And of course, the last point is, in terms of client servicing, is just taking ownership of the brand, feeling like this is my brand and I want to have the best content out there for it. The moment you have that ownership, that will transcend the brand side, will see your passion, and that's when you guys will create great campaigns together. Hi, Ketan. Thanks for logging in. Okay, now I'm going to talk about some examples. I'm going to try and share this link here with you. Guys, do you have your phones with you? If you have your phones with you, I want you to very quickly go on to the Instagram handle of McDonald's India. I'm going to log in through my own phone also. Yeah, so that's the McDonald's India. I'm sorry, the light is probably coming in. That's their handle. I want you to very quickly log on to this, and I'll tell you why. So McDonald's India is handled by 22 Feet, which has been one of the agencies that I've worked with, and who I've really enjoyed working with. Now, think about McDonald's as a brand, right? What is their brand asset? They have burgers, but really, how many pictures of burgers can you post before it gets boring? Their big brand asset is the sort of M logo that I'm sure it has a term, which I'm sorry I'm getting right now, is really that asset, the M. Um, and what's beautiful about the way 22 Feet has worked on McDonald's is how they have leveraged just that one asset so beautifully. So I'm going to show you some of my favorite examples right away here. Yeah, okay. So for example, this is their Ganesh Chaturthi post. Yeah, sorry, that's called the Golden Arches. By the way, every time I look at the back, that's actually my husband coming to give me a tip. So yeah, it's called the sort of, you see how beautifully they've used a simple asset like fries, sauce, and the arch. So that's one of my favorite. I'm going to show you a few more. Yeah, check this out. This is the spider when the far away from home logo. That's how they recreated the spider using the French fries and burger. So that's another great one. I'm going to look for a few more examples with the, yeah, look at the Eid Mubarak post. One of my favorites. They use the wedges as the moon in this post. So scroll through their feed, check out the content that they have there. The reason that I brought up McDonald's specifically is because McDonald's globally has done some amazing work. And if you are in marketing and I'm sure you've read about McDonald's and Burger King. Very recently, actually, let me just quickly tell you this. McDonald's decided that all their proceeds for one day are going to go to a certain charity. So Burger King came out with a creative saying no whoopers for today, because they're going to support McDonald's and support this great initiative of them. So McDonald's, Burger King, Coke, Pepsi, these are like the gurus when it comes to brand facing off with each other. So do check that out. So globally, McDonald's has done some phenomenal work. But in India, I am amazed by how well they are customizing their content to really fit the Indian market. And again, I feel like this is the result of a really good client service partner with, of course, the brand manager or the digital marketing manager of McDonald's, who, the way that they think about topical issue, the way that they know they have a few assets. They have the arch, they have the burgers, the fries, just a few products. But the way they leverage them is absolutely phenomenal. And I'm sure all of you follow Mad Over Marketing on Instagram or wherever, Facebook, their website, and you'll often see that whenever there is a trending issue, they share like what the best brands have done. And McDonald's is one of those brands which always happens to feature there, especially in the last few months. So that's really the power of what a really powerful client servicing and a brand coming together, understanding what are my brand boundaries and really pushing them to this level where each post is like delightful. Each post seems like a beautifully thought out and created ad. So that's one example that I have in mind. The other one, I'm again going to share the link here. I want you to go and check out this agency called Shebang. Now, I have personally actually not worked with Shebang, but theirs is one of the few Instagram handles I just love following, for the simple reason that every time there is something topical. So let's open out the Shebang Instagram handle also as we see. Every time there is something topical, these guys do such great work for all of their brands. Yeah, and so what they'll do is, if there is like something like an Eid Mubarak, they'll put like what they've done for 6 or 7 brands, and you can just swipe and see how they have used that one common theme of Eid or Diwali or food or whatever it is, or Instagram music, for example. Instagram just launched a new music feature in India finally. So how they use all of that to really create magic for their brands. So that's another brand that's another handle I want to check out. The reason I am pushing you to do this is because you have to start. Hi Shantanu, you have to start truly imagining life as a social media marketer or as someone in client servicing, and understand what is it that other brands are doing out there. Because one of your big jobs is to really stay at the top of your game, like to make sure that you are you're always in tune with what's happening, what are other brands doing, picking up best practices, and then being evolved enough to actually create something which should go on and become a best practice in that sense. Yeah, so those are some examples of great client servicing. Now let's talk a little bit about your career trajectory. So I know this is not completely relevant for your interview, but this is just something that I wanted to speak to you about personally, because that's a question I know you will have, that if I get into client servicing, what will happen? I don't want to spend my life in advertising. I want to move. So let me just explain to you. See, typically when you enter client servicing, what will happen is that you will be, like I mentioned, working on one specific thing. So SEO, performance, social media, for one or at best two brands. At best three, but that's really going to be the top of it. So what's going to happen is very early on into your career, you're going to really understand the soul of digital marketing in that sense. You will understand what it takes, what is the real stuff behind digital marketing, right? Which is amazing, which is something that's going to help you throughout your career. And one of my all-time favorite digital marketing gurus, in fact, is Dipali Nair, who is currently the marketing head at IBM, if I'm correct. She's someone I worked with in the past, and she's someone I deeply admire as a woman in Indian advertising. And if you see her career trajectory, she started her career in client servicing, and even I think till date, one of the reasons that she's come up with the great stuff that she has is because she truly understands how digital and client servicing and the she's like lived and breathed some great brands, and that experience has really helped her. Sorry, just give me a second. Pradya? Sorry guys, I'm doing this webinar from home, so you have to excuse the small disturbances in the middle. So you will start with 2 or 3 brands in the beginning, and then you will go on to take up more brands, and then maybe 2 or 3 years down the line, as you move to the next level, you will start taking care of entire account. So where you're not just going to be doing only performance, only SEO, but you might be managing the entire account together. That will be the next stage, 2 to 3 later. And then of course, then from client servicing, you can go on to go into creative direction, or to move into business development if that's something that interests you. The other, of course, career path is that you are in client servicing for 2, 3, 4 years, and then from there you actually move on to the brand side. And again, guys, let me tell you, that is something which is completely possible. I know multiple people who have taken that career path also, because after 2 to 3 years, you have so much experience because you work with a host of different brands, that when you go and work on a brand, your contribution is absolutely amazing. In fact, one of the recent additions to our team at Monster is also someone who's come from an agency background in a very sort of similar client servicing group. So whichever way, if you decide that, listen, I love advertising, you have a great career path there. If you want to move from advertising into the brand side, you have a great career path even there, right? So it's really on you. The other thing that I want to talk to you about is really client servicing models, right? So typically when you start off in client servicing, you may not, business development may not be a part of your days in that sense. So you will be put on an account which already the company has acquired and is an ongoing account. But within a year or so, you might also involve in business development, which is the actual pitching, and then client servicing, which makes your job even more interesting. So for example, there are a lot of agencies where the person who comes to pitch to you in business development actually later goes on to become your client servicing person. And that really is the best case scenario, because there you're really involved in the business side of the agency, which is bringing in new clients, bringing in revenue. And then of course, you're also doing the fun side, which is actually executing campaigns with lots of lovely brands. So both models, even if you don't start with business development, there is a good likelihood that in 1 or 2, hi Faraz, in 1 or 2 years, you guys do get that opportunity also. So that's about your career trajectory. Do you guys have any other questions, particularly on the career trajectory? Then just, I'm going to wait for a second. If not, then that's fine. We'll move on to the next topic. Okay. So I don't see any questions. So let's move on to the next topic. We've finished about an hour. Let's spend about the next half an hour, I guess, on your actual interview prep. I am going to take you through 7 or 8 interview questions, which I think could happen during your interviews. And I'm going to try and give you my answers for them, but also I'm going to try and tell you how to prep for those questions when they happen at your time. Okay, so let's quickly jump into that. What's your favorite brand on social media and what do you admire about them? So this is a question which I can almost guarantee will come to you, where they will ask you about your favorite brand, what do you like about them. So I'm going to talk to you about 2 or 3 brands that I love on social media and tell you why I love them. The first one I mentioned before is called Glossier. Glossier is actually a beauty brand. Now, if you look at any beauty brand today, they're always going for perfection, like the perfect girl with the perfect makeup, with the perfect product. Glossier decided to chuck all of that. Sorry, I have a question, Akash. Is there any difference between client servicing, executive, and account executive? Well, I'm not fully sure, Akash, because in my experience, these terms have been used interchangeably in a lot of agencies. Many times in some of my agencies, an account executive was someone who was working solely on my account. But like, okay, how do I explain this? But managing a smaller part of the portfolio, whereas the client servicing person was the direct point of contact in that sense. But again, I feel like these terms are fairly interchangeable in most agencies that I have met. So I'm not sure if there's any very specific difference between the two. Yeah. So let's jump back into my favorite social media brand. Sorry, I was talking to you about this brand called Glossier. Let me link their Instagram here. There you go. Check out their Instagram. Now, what Glossier decided to do is completely go against beauty norms, right? They decided that they're going to be as real as possible when it comes to beauty. So their feed is nothing to do with perfection. It's to do with being real. It's to do with real women who use real products and have real problems, and and all of the silly problems that any girl who's applied makeup has. And that's what their handle is about. And just recently I was reading their amongst America's 20 most valuable brands for this year. So that just shows that authenticity goes a much longer way than perfection. And that's really one of my favorite international brands. In terms of Indian brands, of course, I spoke to you about McDonald's. The other brand which I think has used influencer marketing really well is this watch brand called Daniel Wellington. When Daniel Wellington launched in India, they essentially decided to use a plethora of fashion influencers. So what they did is they gave each fashion influencer their own Daniel Wellington, 1 or 2 samples, and they gave them a code. So the fashion influencer would add a swipe up on the Instagram story. People could go buy that watch and they would put in that code. So Daniel Wellington was also able to track which influencer is really getting them how many sales. And the brand really exploded in India in the first year itself, just because they reached out to the right fashion influencers, with a very customized sort of content approach. So that's an influencer marketing example that I really like. Now, let's come down to when you answer this question. First of all, how do you find these brands? So there are 3 resources I recommend, 2 actually to start with. First is Mad Over Marketing, and the second one is the Fake Co. Both of these guys cover great campaigns on social media that are being done by brands. Even if today at this point, sorry, I have a question. Hi Tisha, do you suggest client servicing at an agency to be kind of a stepping stone in order to get to the brand side, or directly joining a brand? Look, like I mentioned to you earlier, client servicing and brand management do have a certain kind of overlap. If you get an opportunity to get into a brand, then that's great. Definitely join it. Don't think of client servicing only as a stepping stone. Like if your eventual objective is that, listen, I want to be a brand manager of a brand, then yes, of course, it's great if you can start your career itself by being in a brand, because that just makes that career trajectory slightly shorter. In client servicing, your learning might actually be a lot more than being a brand manager, but the path from client servicing to brand management in that sense is slightly longer. So that really depends on what your final objective is. And for example, if you are someone who loves advertising and you want to stay in advertising, then join client servicing, and then see explore, because there you're really at the heart of everything. You get to work with different people, different teams, and then obviously within agencies, switching between one function to the other is not as tough. So if you find like your true passion is in copy or creative, then you can very easily switch on to that side. And if not, then in a few years you can always move to a brand side. So yeah, that really depends on what your eventual objective is. Yeah. And also in terms of I don't know if I should be saying this, but just like in terms of remuneration, brands tend to pay a little better than agencies do. So that's another thing that you have to keep in mind whether when you're deciding whether you want to go. I mean, agencies are eventually becoming paymasters, but at the end of the day, the fact is that brands do pay you better than agencies at the beginning of your career. So that's another thing that I guess you have to keep in mind. Yeah. So yeah, I'm just sharing the other two assets that I spoke to you about. Yeah. So even if right now in this moment you guys don't have a favorite in terms of your favorite brand, actually, if you do have a favorite brand, can you please quickly comment and tell me that? I would love to know, like, a social media brand that you guys love. Any brand that comes to your mind. So even if you don't have a brand at this point, go and look at these handles, see what other brands are doing, see which brands are becoming topical. And the idea is, let's not Nika. Yeah, Nika Chabi is one of my favorite Indian beauty brands, and what a phenomenal job Nika has done when it comes to using influencer marketing and really understanding the beauty industry in India, their e-commerce distribution, to the fact that they are one of the few brands which has successfully gone from online to offline today. So yeah, Nika is a great example. Cadbury Dairy Milk. So in fact, just yesterday I told you I was reading Piyush Pandey's book. Who actually made the very famous Cadbury ad, if you remember, in the 1990s, which is this girl, the cricket match, and the girl goes running to the field with a Cadbury in hand. So just yesterday I was, yeah, one of my favorite brands. Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is yeah, I had the fortune of doing my internship with Coca-Cola India, and yeah, brand management to the next level. Absolutely. Nike. The Nike Dada Ding campaign is my benchmark of a campaign that I want to work on at one point in my life. Like the campaign they released 2 years ago with using women athletes and influencers in India was just like, yeah, for me that was it. Swiggy's new music feature on Insta. Oh yeah, Swiggy is always killing it, guys. Like Swiggy is, their marketing is bang on. They are the Swiggy and Zomato are the masters of moment marketing, in my opinion, right now in the Indian fraternity. Cadbury, yeah, Fevicol. One of my mentors is the CMO at for Fevicol, and if you saw their very recent ad campaign, which is 60 years of Fevicol. If not, just go and check it out. Yeah, again, beautiful campaign, and Fevicol has been working with Ogilvy for years now, and again, Fevicol and Ogilvy together are the masters of client servicing and brand management. Like nobody else does it. No one else does it like they do. Durex, yeah. Durex, like I said, again, bang on each time. They have such a controversial topic to talk about. There is really nothing more controversial in India to talk about than sex, and the way they talk about it, and really how bang on their creatives are. Zomato, yeah. I think Zomato also. I'm not sure, but I think Zomato has like an internal content hub. I don't think they work only with agencies. They have a bunch of like copywriters and designers in house, which is why in terms of moment marketing, the moment something happens, they're there. Yeah, they're absolutely great. Um, Campaign of Cadbury 5 star, yeah, the video content. Another thing that so 5 star in India, if you look at their social media, they're not very big, but the concept that they have is in fact really good 360. So the concept that they started off with television, the same concept they have taken and sort of tried to bring that alive on social. Not super successfully yet though, but yeah, they are trying. Piyush Pandey, Asian Paints. Yeah, Piyush Pandey is, of course, yeah, like the god of advertising. Let me tell you a little story about when I used to be at B school. One of the things that I would do, we had this beautiful library. So I'm from SIBM, and SIBM has this like scenic library. And one of the books I used to check out most often is this. It's called Ogilvy on Advertising. And every time I would take part in a case study competition or something, I would go and check this book out, to an extent where the librarian decided to present it to me, because he's like, you're the only person who's been coming and reading this book so many times. So this is actually the original copy of my 2 years at SIBM. And I have been reading Pandemonium, and I think it's going to become one of those books which as really like which really makes the marketer in me happy. And Zuzus, of course, yeah, who can forget the Zuzus? Okay, great. So I'm really happy to see that all of you have so many different brands on your mind which you already love. Um, uh, Pankaj has a question: is spending too much on digital marketing for the top brand companies make a difference in the long run because they are coming up with new ads? See, okay, when it comes to digital marketing spends, let me tell you something. If you have X amount of money as a brand, your reach on digital versus reach on offline is going to be at least 10x any day, right? So if I'm spending, the reason that companies, so earlier what used to happen is people used to only have television, and buying a TV ad spot is expensive and it's not going to get any cheaper, right? So they used to have to come up with one campaign or two campaigns in a year and then run that the whole year. The reason that companies are getting out so many campaigns today is a, content creation is much cheaper, but secondly, content dissemination is so much cheaper, right? So for me to build and launch a film, promote it on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, the whole cost of that is a fraction of what it just takes to make a TV ad, not even promote it, etc. Right? So no, of course not. I mean, today the entire point of content marketing is how fast and how relevant you can be. So it's about having the right. It's about almost in a sense of quantity over quality, really, for a lot of brands. So there is no harm, and it's actually going to positively impact their brand more than anything. So I'll give you a small example. At Club Mahindra, there is something called YouTube bumpers, which are really the 6 seconders that you see before a YouTube video starts playing. And we had almost 50 or 60 different bumpers. So what that would mean is, if, for example, you are going in traffic on a Monday morning at 9 in the morning, and you're stuck in a traffic jam, the bumper would show you these three boats colliding with each other and say, this is the kind of traffic jam you should be stuck in. And then there would be a link to Club Mahindra. So really, it's about, because social media and digital is so much about personalization and customizing, making sure you reach the right person at the right time with the right message. Therefore, the more content you have, in a sense, the better it is for your brand. Yeah. So coming back to my question, which was about brands you admire, I'm glad to see that you have so many brands that you guys love. It's also important for you to understand what is it that you love about them, what is it that makes these brands unique. And my opinion is, go for two. When someone asks you, go for two brands, go for one brand which they obviously already know, like any of the brands that you spoke about today. Any marketer will know about them. But then also go for a slightly offbeat, smaller brand which will make them think like, oh, this person actually invests time in reading or searching about what brands are doing, right? So go for both of those in your answer. Okay, next question. If I were XYZ brand and had to launch a new product in India, how would you do that? Okay, guys, I'm going to share this article. Now, this is probably the most important question that I'm going to cover with you today, which is when someone asks you that you are XYZ brand. So, for example, let's take the product, the Monster product. Monster has launched a new energy drink in India called Ultra. So, and I want you guys to solve this with me. I don't want this to be just me talking and you guys listening in. Okay, so we'll do this case study together. Monster has launched a new brand in India called Ultra. This is a 0-calorie product. It's a citrus flavor product, and we are looking to launch a campaign in India. So would you guys have any ideas on how we can do it, or any structure that you think we can put to this? I'm going to wait for a few minutes. Think of what you can do or how you would approach this, and then I'll come back to my approach. If you give me some great ideas and actually use them, I'm not going to pay you anything, guys. I'm already warning you. Okay, so while some of you type out your answers, what I'm going to talk to you about is a framework, which is the 5W and 1H framework, which is something I literally learned about in my first year of B school, and I have used that continuously even up till my most recent interview. So when someone asks you, how would you launch a brand into the market, please don't jump into giving answers. Okay, the thing that I told you here is that they are trying to understand your thought process as a marketer. How evolved are you in your thinking? They don't really want an answer. They don't really want you to launch the product right there and then. So spend time in thinking about the 5 things. I'm going to type them out here, and then let's go one by one into each of these points. Okay, that's my secret mantra, which I have finally given you guys. So the first thing that you will start with is what. So if I tell you, hey, I'm an energy drink brand, or hey, I'm a fashion brand, I'm launching a new product, the first thing you have to immediately go back and ask the interviewer is, what is the product exactly? Just saying that I am a new lipstick is not going to help anyone's cause. You have to get into details of what is the new lipstick. Is it a matte lipstick? What kind of lipstick? So question them so that you can really understand what is the product. Okay, don't just take the product name, for example. Question them to get to the real product, because the next thing after that for you to define is the who, which is, who is my customer? So who is going to be actually buying this product? Now, who is includes the, is it targeted towards men, women? Is it rural, urban? Is it which cities, or what age groups, what demographics? Like, it's important for you to really understand the demographic profile in your mind before you get into giving any answers, because then immediately you know. So for example, if I am launching a new product for like office wear, for example, a premium office makeup, for example, right? I'm not going to be running a campaign on Instagram, because, or I'll not spend that much money on Instagram or YouTube, because my target audience in India is actually going to live on Facebook, which is people or women who have careers, who are 35 above. They actually spend a lot more time on Facebook than say a YouTube or Instagram. So the moment you have that customer persona in your mind ready, very quickly you can customize the answer. So the first is, what is the product? Who is the customer? Um, yeah. Why? Okay. What should I say? Yeah. The next question is, what should I say? Now, this is when you actually start thinking as a marketer and get into, okay, what am I going to say to launch this product? So then you'll come up with a few campaign ideas in terms of, this should be the positioning, or this should be the positioning. This is what the messaging should be. So you'll spend some time on that. And then you come on to the bigger point, which is, where should I say? So based on your audience, based on the message, what are the right platforms that you want to reach out to? That's going to be your where. And then, of course, you will also look at, how should I measure it? Now, you may not immediately be able to get into the right metrics for the product, but it's important for them to know that you do understand how important metrics are for each campaign. So, for example, if you decide that it's going to be, I'm going to talk about, so let's come back to Ultra. Okay, so for example, if you decide that I'm going to launch a fitness video which I'm going to promote on YouTube, then what are going to be your metrics? Am I going to look at cost per view? Am I going to look at number of views, number of likes, number of shares, number of people who, like, what percentage of the video did they actually watch before bouncing? So there are different metrics for each sort of answer that you might have, but it's important for them to understand that you understand metrics in that sense, so that tomorrow when you actually start your job, you they already know you're someone who knows how to think in numbers and not just faff content. So that's really the model that you should look at when you are when you have any question that you're answering during an interview. If you guys have any questions on the model, or then please just keep asking me as we go along, as I move on to the next question. The next question is going to be on metrics. So one of the questions that you might be asked during interview is, what do you think is the most important metric per channel? Now, again, this question is very difficult to define, because on Facebook itself, I could run different kinds. So if I'm running a lead gen campaign, my metric is different. If I'm running a brand engagement, brand awareness, each of these different kind of campaigns have different kind of metrics. But as a generic answer, you need to think about what you think is important. So I'll try and give you a generic answer right now to start with. Let's start with YouTube. On YouTube, perhaps the two important things for you to measure are cost per view and what percentage of the video are people watching. So these are the two most important metrics in my opinion. Coming to Instagram, on Instagram, your reach is important. That's, if you had to measure only one thing, I would measure my reach. And the other thing I would measure on any post is, the little sign, which is number of saves. That's a surprisingly important metric, because that shows that people like your content and they want to come back to it later. So, sorry, I have a question. Depends upon digital platforms and campaign growth. Yes, absolutely right. You are right. The metrics do depend on that, like I said. So what I'm trying to do is at least give you some generic metrics. But of course, if they ask you a very specific campaign, specific goal, you will have to adapt these metrics to that campaign. So Instagram, we spoke about. Facebook Facebook, again, if it's a performance campaign, your biggest metric will be cost per lead. If it's actual sale, if it's sorry, an engagement campaign, then your reach, your cost per engagement, which is basically your total number of engagements, like, share, comments, divide by total cost. So that your cost per engagement is another metric that you can track. On Twitter, again, typically lead gen campaigns are very few and far between. Also, lead gen on Twitter is freakishly expensive. So there again, you're typically tracking how many your engagement rates, how many retweets your campaign got, more than anything. I think today you have to understand that likes or hearts are pretty much a dead metric, because the moment you sponsor or promote any kind of content, likes, etc., will come. It's important for you to go into the deeper metrics of real engagement, which is how many people are sharing your content, how many people are commenting on it. Those are the true metrics for a brand manager to evaluate what content has done well. So these are some of the important metrics. If do you guys have any questions around metrics? Okay, let's wait for a few questions to come in. Yeah, the next question is, which has been a campaign that you have really liked in the past year? This is a question whose answer I recommend that you guys have handy. Think about the brands. So this is not about a brand always being active. This may not be a brand who's got 1 million followers on social media, but this is just a brand who's done something amazing which you have loved. So actually, my favorite campaign from last year is not online; it's an offline campaign that HBO did when Game of Thrones was releasing. And if you saw, they used these really smart. They did an outdoor campaign. They did hoarding, and they used these phrases which only a Game of Thrones fan would understand and identify with, right? So if you're promoting the eighth season of eighth season of a particular show, you are technically talking to the already engaged users, and therefore very smartly using outdoor, HBO targeted only those people and said, listen, come and watch this when it's streaming. So that was one of my favorite campaigns from last year. Again, think of a few. Even if you're interviewing for digital, don't only have digital examples in mind. You're also a consumer who roams around the market, and you go on streets, you look up at hoardings and ads, you watch television. So think of different kinds of ads that you like, not just a social media campaign necessarily, right? Because you want to come across as a holistic marketer. Right. Next question. Tell us about a brand which does 360-degree marketing campaigns well. Now, when you talk about, first of all, let's come to what is a 360-degree campaign. A 360-degree campaign is essentially where you have the same campaign message across different platforms: television, newspapers, hoardings, online. So every platform you'll have a similar message. Now, there are two brands which come to my mind. One is Fanta. I think if you watch the Fanta television ad and you go to their Instagram feed, or you see any ads by them like that, the way they play up on the orange, the fun element of the brand immediately shines through. So I think Fanta does an excellent job. The other one is, of course, Amul. Now, Amul is not fully 360 because Amul's television ads are slightly different from what they do on hoardings and on digital, which is basically using the Amul girl and being very topical. Their TV ads are slightly still more conventional, but there is a great synergy between what Amul does on their Instagram and on hoardings. And I think Amul is the only brand in India which has managed to make hoardings topical, and really you'll see their hoardings change as often as 1 or 2 days. At least once every week the hoarding will change. And they have certain specific hoardings they've taken up for the entire year. So Amul is one of my favorite topical brands. Again, great synergy between offline and online in that sense. So think about brands and campaigns who you see, the moment you see their Instagram and the moment you see their TV ad, you feel like, okay, wow, this makes sense, this connects. And that's really what a great 360-degree campaign is all about. Tell us about brands who have managed to evolve and stay relevant even in this age of digital media. Now, this is the question which is about brands which started off really before the digital age, but have continued to evolve and stay relevant. And in fact, you guys mentioned a few of these already. Nike is a great example. My favorite Indian brand for this is, of course, Asian Paints. I think Asian Paints is something that And if you remember, even when our parents have grown up with the Asian Paints Gattu campaign, and when they used a mascot for their brand, to the way that advertising has evolved over the years, to now they run a YouTube series where they go into celebrities' homes and really talk about childhood memories, or whether they do wall graffiti and that goes viral, or just the way they manage their social media feed. So Asian Paints is a great example of a brand who started off as very conventional, but in the sense very quickly revised or almost revamped their presence on online, and has stayed relevant. Amul, of course, is the master when it comes to that. Just think about what Amul is, right? Like, Amul is a cooperative society. Literally, it's like, just go back and read about the origin of Amul, how it started, and think about what that brand has achieved today, right? And that is just such a powerful story. And there is no greater case study in brand management as than what Amul has done. I'll give you a small example. There was this person in my office who loves Amul, and he used to eat these Amul chocolates, and sort of he had a whole wall where he had stuck Amul chocolates all over. So I just did an Instagram story, and I sort of went through that feed. It was not even a post; it was just a story, and I tagged Amul, and I was like, "Hey guys, check this out." And within a few minutes, someone from Amul reached out to me, and the next day there were like these chocolate bundles which had come to me and to him. And honestly, before that, I had never eaten an Amul chocolate in my life. And now I'm a fan, not because I love the chocolate, but just because I love like that moment of customer delight where, like, having that one piece of chocolate come and get delivered to me for an Instagram story I did, that just made me a loyal customer for life. And so that's really, like, brands like Amul have mastered social media delight in that sense, and gained customers like me who are going to now stay loyal forever. I am also going to share this Exchange for Media article with you, which talks about a few other brands, except the ones that I spoke about, which who have done this very, very successfully. Yes, okay. One brand who have leveraged, okay, yeah, the other, I'm going to get into the last two questions now, which I think could come in your interviews. One brand who you think have leveraged social media influencer marketing well. I already spoke about Daniel Billington. The other category for you to look at is nutrition. So if you look at any of these fitness brands, not just apparel, but also like people who make protein bars, and those kind of brands, they leverage fitness influencers extremely well, to the point that because fitness is one category where people really follow people on social media and really take their advice, and want to eat the same brand, want to do the same thing as a fitness influencer is doing, because they want to be like them more than in any other category. So all of these, so Ace Blend is a vegan protein. I think it's an Indian vegan protein. Again, completely dependent on influencer marketing. So check out what they have done. But if you look at any sort of protein brand, you'll realize that they use influencers really well. So that's one category. And the last question that I am going to talk to you about is one book that you have read which really impacted your life. I think as someone in marketing, the moment you stop reading, you're dead. And digital is such a fast field that every day there is a new feature, every day there is a new every day Facebook changes something, every day Google changes their algorithm. There is so much happening that the moment you stop reading, you are essentially extinct in the field. So talking about my all-time favorite books, I love Seth Godin. These books are so easy to read. I recently read All Marketers Are Storytellers. Not recently, actually, I recently reread it. I used to read a lot of marketing books during my B school. I think one book that really impacted me was two, actually: Predictably Irrational and The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. These are my holy grails. I am a big Kotler fan. Even till date, I have a Kotler just lying in my bookshelf, and I some days just open up a page and just read something, because no one gets marketing like he does for me. And I spoke to you about Ogilvy on advertising, which has been like my holy grail when it comes to advertising. Just reading about, so for example, the Beetle ad, like how Beetle started to what it's become, to the way that Beetle advertises today. So yeah, there are a lot of books which have impacted my life. I recommend that you guys also have a certain number of books that you have read about marketing, and have an answer to give. So guys, these were the questions that I had from my perspective, which you could get asked in a client servicing interview. I am going to wait for the next well, we've actually already been on for 1.5 hours. My throat and voice are completely hoarse. So I'm going to wait for 2 or 3 minutes, wait for you guys to ask me any questions that you have, and then I will log out. So if you have any questions, I'm just going to quickly wait and get them so that you can send them through. You could have interview questions or questions on books or resources or anything. And of course, after this, I am going to share the document that I have been sort of referring to during this session. So that should anyway help you out. Okay, so I don't see any questions coming up yet. What I am going to do is I'm going to drop a link to my LinkedIn and Instagram here. Oh, sorry. Any specific skills that you search for on our CV? See, Avni, the thing is that your CV during an interview is really the place where I ask you questions from, right? Because I don't know who you are. I don't know anything about you except that one piece of paper. So your CV has to give me enough opportunities to ask you questions. So when you write about your internship, do detail it out a little. Like, it's important to have those details of exactly these are the 3 or 4 areas that your internship was about, so that I at least have a starting point to ask you questions. So try and detail out things like projects and your internship as much as possible. That's my recommendation. Where do I learn about past brand stories or journey? Me, where does anyone learn anything? Google. Google, like the top 50 brands of all times. See their stories, see their journeys. But more importantly than all of this, think about the brands that you have grown up to love and admire, right? And then just delve into their stories, because a brand that you admire, that could be anything. It could be a car brand. It could be the Maruti. Like, for example, our first car was a Maruti 800, like so many people, and therefore Maruti has always stayed one of my favorite brands, and I always sort of look up to what they did. So, for example, how Maruti changed their positioning with Nexa, what they've done, how they've so really established themselves. They've gone up above that middle class family brand and become a luxury brand in a sense. So yeah, think about the brands that you have loved your entire life and read about those, because that's when you'll really understand the stories, is when you love a brand. Which is better according to you, off-page SEO? Oh wow, that's that's a really technical question. See, the thing with SEO is there is no either or, better, worse. You have to do everything, because each of these things. So think of it like a checklist, and there is literally like all of this that you have to do to get there. Because see, at the end of the day, your website cannot rank for more than once or twice in those 10 searches, right? So think of Google. The Google Holy Grail is the top 10 links that come up when you search for something. Now, not all of them can be related to your brand. So you also do off-page where engage with other website bloggers, etc., to talk about your brand. So there is these both. They're both very different, but they're both equally important. I'm just going to wait to see if there are if there are any more questions coming up. Dad, Dad, sorry, my father is speaking. You might hear him behind. He's clearly not taking our webinar seriously enough, guys. Okay, so guys, if there are no more questions, have I dropped my, yeah, okay. Apart from SEO, SEM, inbound marketing, what else should I learn to kickstart? Wow, if you already know about SEO, SEM, inbound marketing, you're sorted, yeah. Listen, here's the thing, okay? When you're sitting for an interview, the interviewer will never expect you to know everything. But just the fact that you're someone who reads about, just a second, Dad, just give me a second, guys, sorry. Sorry guys, I'm back. Yeah, just the fact that you're someone who reads and understands different aspects of marketing is more than enough for me as an interviewer to be impressed and to hire you. So like I mentioned, do check out the Google and Facebook courses that are there. They're all available for free. I think that will give you a good starting point, except for this. Apart from SEO, yeah, okay. I think, yeah, I've taken those up. I am going to quickly share my handles, which is what I was telling you guys. I am very, very active on most social media platforms. So yeah, let me just try and send that to you. Okay, somehow it's not letting me send those to you. I'll add them in the description below. Thank you guys for logging in. Thank you for all your lovely questions, and thank you for being a great audience and being so engaging the whole time. And keep reaching out to me for any questions you have, and all the very best for the interview sessions that are going to happen for you for your placement season. And the fact that you're coming into marketing is going to it's really the best career choice. It's such an exciting life to be in, and even if I could do anything in the world, I would do what I am doing today. Or very honestly, I would do nothing else but this. And I hope that you feel as passionately about marketing and digital and social media as I do. And I hope to meet some of you in the future. Good luck, guys. Thank you.